Welcome back to Take a Pitch.
What up? What up? What up?
What up?
My favorite episode of the year, by the way.
Yeah, Hall of Fame, man.
Love it. I absolutely love it. Big fan of the hall and what it stands for, all that stuff, and preserving the game. I went there last August. Gonna make it an
That's
annual
right.
trip actually.
Oh yeah, with
So,
Brett.
oh yeah, yeah. Brett hit me up. He's like, "Yo, let's make it like a little tradition."
I like it.
So we're gonna
It's
go
cool.
to the Hall of Fame every year. It looks like.
It's a
So I'm
cool
very excited
tradition.
for that. Love it.
Um, Hall of Fame also has a big part of Take a Pitch.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It was our first ever episode of Taking Pictures, cringy as it
It was not
was
cringy. It was beautiful.
uh,
I'm gonna link it down
50
below.
50 50
Linking it
50.
down below.
Our first episode was talking about the Hall of Fame class of 2019.
Yeah.
And listen, I think there was no better way to start Take a Pitch, start the show, start it, this whole thing than with the Hall of Fame because of what it represents. The fact that it's the beginning of the year. This is now episode 2 of season 4, 5, 5.
This is season 5, episode 2.
Crazy ride we've been on, man. Crazy ride we've been on.
Yeah.
Had a lot of guests, had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that's not stopping,
No. Only
because
growing.
as well, especially I'm so glad that the writers didn't shut us out this year.
Me
Scott
too.
Rolen elected in his 6th year, I think,
I think he's 7th,
of
right?
eligibility, 6th or 7th year.
Oh
He
no, it
actually
was
made
6th. It
history
was
today.
6th. It was 6th.
He made history today.
Yeah.
Not only is he just the ninth third baseman to be voted to the Hall of Fame by the writers,
Really?
ninth.
Wow.
He had the lowest debut percentage at 10.2% to make it to the Hall of Fame.
It's crazy. I mean,
It's the new age voters, man. I'm telling you, we're seeing that shift. You and I said it before. We were going to
like
see that shift one of these days, and I think we're starting.
at this point, I almost prefer the guys who, you know, the standards of 500 home runs, 300 wins, 3,000 strikeouts,
Even the stuff
3,000
that doesn't
hits.
happen in the game anymore.
Yeah, like I almost prefer like a standard than whatever they're doing. Like those guys got in no matter what
Yeah,
based on the merit of their stats and their
even
gameplay.
400 home runs. Yeah, for the most part, most
Yeah,
guys with 400 home runs are in the Hall of Fame.
most things I would drop down now, but it's also it's specific. Like you look at like switch hitters, right? How many switch hitters
Right,
have over 500? I can only think of two
right.
off the top of my head.
I can only think of two. Also,
Yeah. So, switch hitters,
it's listen. The Hall of Fame. Right
Mhm.
now people are talking about the Hall of Very Good, which I don't agree with because there are a lot of guys, especially on this year's ballot. And next year we're going to get a stacked ballot, by the way, for a lot of good first time candidates.
I would say one
Uh,
good first time, really.
Beltray,
Beltray, yeah, he's a first
yeah,
ballot. He'll get in next year.
right, he's a lock. But we got a lot of guys that the new age voters coming in, old voters kind of giving up their seats. Not as many as should, but um,
I don't like these new guys either. I'm not gonna
dude,
lie.
I saw a
So,
ballot that seemed like it was racially motivated, which we're not even going to get into. There is no rhyme
so,
or reason for how the voters are doing
so
things.
it wasn't racially motivated because then obviously he would have voted
Right,
for
Tory
Hunter
Hunter.
too.
Right.
But it just the stupidity behind his reasoning is just like
Well,
now
yeah,
you're
his
making it look like it's a race thing, which is
his
stupid.
his reasoning was Sheffield's 500 home run standout. So again, that plateau that we talked about.
Hmm.
And
If
if
there's
there's a
any
debate
debate,
about your career, you're not a Hall of Fame now.
but here's the thing:
I think that's pretty
Sheffield
stubborn.
took steroids, so I mean, A Rod hit almost 700 home runs,
Right. There's no debate about his
and
career.
he took steroids. So like it's just stupid reasoning, which is why it came off looking like it was a race thing, in my opinion.
Right. It was not a good look for him or any voter
I
who
agree.
decided to hardline their logic. But
Agreed.
for the first time this year, not we actually did the voting all online for a fan vote.
Yes.
and we had two guys who said they come to defend it, talk about the ballot, and they're going to come on the show in a little bit. And
Hmm.
I'm very excited because these two both have great baseball minds. They know what they're talking about
We'll
for the
see.
most part. Good guys, uh, and good friends of mine. And I'm very excited to hear their thoughts on their ballot. But we had over 50 ballots for the first time, and we didn't stop at over 50.
Yep.
127 ballots were submitted to us this year, which is a new record for us.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who sent in a ballot, whether you voted with us in the past or not. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is
Thank
awesome. We
you.
have the
Also,
most data we've had.
thank you for sharing with your friends. Thank you, and keep that up. Share with your friends. Tell your friends to share with their friends next year. And yeah,
We'll keep growing this thing.
yeah.
Eventually, I want to blow past the writers' numbers. I think they had 389 this year.
Okay.
So we had almost a third of what the writers had, and I think our ballots, our voters got it more right
Yeah.
than the actual baseball writers.
Yeah. I
Even
mean,
though on our end, Scott Rowland didn't get elected,
that's
and he
true.
actually had a bit of a climb to go next year. So I'm very interested to see if we kept him on the ballot next year and took off the others that made it for us, what would happen. But we'll get to that in a little bit. We can reveal it once our two guests join the show, because they'll go through their ballot. We'll go through ours. Very excited. Let me send. But Billy, any thoughts?
I think that Scott Rowland deserved to be elected. I think he deserved to be elected for. I think I'm pretty sure I had him on my ballot every single year. Um,
I think I put him on for the first time last year, I believe.
I I don't. I mean, I don't have a paper trail or digital footprint
Right.
of my first ballot with 2019.
I don't
With
think
Take a Pitch, we did
I don't know if
paper.
I have mine either. We did paper and then screenshot. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I don't think that no, I had him. Yeah, I had him definitely. I always liked Rolen. I thought that he was a good player. I thought that you just look at his stats and you see that this guy's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best defensive third basemen ever.
I was about to
So
say he's
like,
a two-way guy too.
yeah, like you have Mike Schmidt and Brooks Robinson in there. It's kind of like he's number three, or number four, or Beltre's up
Well,
there too.
he's actually number five. Has the fifth best defensive WAR among players who have played
Uh,
90% of their games at third base
mhm.
at
Who's above him?
21.2. I
That's
think
a
above him
phenomenal
is
defensive war.
insane.
I'm
Insane.
assuming Robinson and Schmidt and
Let's see if I can get it because I saw Baseball Reference
Robinson,
tweeted out.
Schmidt,
Robinson, Buddy Bell,
Buddy Bell,
Greg Nettles, and next year's first timer, Adrian Beltre.
not Mike Schmidt. That's interesting.
Mike Schmidt is seventh with 18.4.
Mike Schmidt
And
is
current Cardinals third baseman, Nolan
yeah,
Arenado, is sixth with 18.8. So he's almost a lock to get it, in my
defensively,
mind at
yeah.
least. Defensively, offensively in general. It's insane. And if we're valuing defense, I'm going to make my case for Andrew Jones,
Mike
one of
Schmidt.
four guys. Okay, continue Mike.
I was gonna
Okay,
say
continue Mike Schmidt real quick.
just linking the two since you interrupted me before. I'm gonna interrupt you back.
Go ahead, yeah.
Forget what I was gonna say. Mike Schmidt is one of four guys to have 400 plus home runs and 10 plus Golden Gloves.
And
Now
right,
you go ahead.
he's one of the three others aside from Andrew Jones that are all in the Hall of Fame. So of those four, the only one not in the Hall of Fame is Andrew Jones.
Andrew
And
Jones.
it's amazing to me that Andrew Jones is not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you value defense so much, you put in Scott Rowland in the Hall of Fame. I'm okay with that. I have zero problem.
Yeah.
But come on, you do that, and you don't put in Andrew Jones, who got 58.1% of the vote in his fifth year of eligibility.
Hmm.
Mind blowing. I don't understand it.
According
I
to
don't understand it at all.
Jaws, Scott Rowland is the 10th best Hall of Famer ever at third base. He is the only one not in the top. He's one of three not in the Hall of Fame in the top 12. Now he is. The other two, Greg Nettles at 12
Right.
and Adrian Beltre at 4, who will be a
Who
Hall
will
of Famer
join
next
him
year.
next year?
So,
If not next year, the year after that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he has 70 career plus war, 70.1 career war. That's
Scott Rolen. First of
Hall of
all,
Famer.
congratulations, Scott Rolen.
Yes,
It's definitely deserving,
yes.
and I'm very, very happy to see that we didn't get shut out this year. I really thought we were going to get shut out. This is actually the first time in the ballot tracker era.
Mm-hmm.
So since I think 2009, I want to say, or 2012, where
2009. That's the first time I've heard it said like that. Go on.
because I thought 2011 first, and then I was like, wait, '09. One of those years. Since I think his name was Ryan Thibodeau, at not Mr. Tibbs on Twitter, and his ballot tracker team. It's the first time someone has received 78% of the vote before the election revealed to not get in, and that was Todd Helton. Todd Helton finished at 72.2%, followed by Billy Wagner at 68.1%. Wagner, an absolutely incredible climb. He was at 2020, he was at 31.7, 21, 46.4,
Mm-hmm.
2022, 51%, and now finishing at 68.1. He is knocking on the door of Cooperstown, and rightfully so. You and I have been big Wagner supporters for years, years,
I know
and
for a
we can get
fact I
into
voted
that
for
more.
him every single time that he's been on a ballot. It, I just, I think guys kind of just get penalized for what teams they played for. You know what I mean? Like, uh, I,
Yeah, I mean the Rockies are going to get dinged all the time. I mean, you're going to see. I'll be interested to see next year when Matt Holliday joins the ballot. Is he going to get dinged because he played the beginning portion of his career in Colorado?
it's possible.
So we'll see. We'll see where that takes him. Even though
Uh,
a lot of his formative years were in St. Louis.
And another thing, in 15, 20 years, let's see how interesting it is with the Blue Jays. Vladdy Jr., right? They're pulling in the fence to 357 in right center.
Insane,
If that's not a
insane.
hitter's advantage, dude, I mean, what they are doing, they are making it the smallest field in baseball. I don't care how tall these fences are. This is the smallest
They are
field in
pretty tall.
baseball. I don't care how tall they are. Doesn't matter. They are still insanely close in. If you
Mm,
hit, if all you have to do is a little bit of a launch angle, he's going to
right.
hit 50 home runs a year. That's great
It'll
for
be
him.
yeah, it'll be
But
very
here's the
interesting to
thing:
see.
I want to see if he gets penalized. We're going to have to remember this in 15, 20 years. Is he going to get penalized? Right? He should.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be
See.
interesting to see. But that being said, we're gonna get joined by our two guests now, and we'll introduce them in just a second. All right. So today we're joined by guest Tommy Rothman, uh, better known in the Twitter world as Nick's memes, absolute legend, absolute legend. Um, and Nick Viano, my former boss, also a good friend of ours, and one of the show's bigger supporters too. Um, Boys, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having
happy
us.
to be
Uh,
here.
so you guys, I think you guys have each voted the last 3 years we've done this.
I
So
think so,
thanks
yeah.
for
Yep,
continued voting and support of the podcast.
my pleasure.
I don't know if Tommy, you want to start maybe with who you voted for this year. We can kind of start
Yeah,
with your ballot and some thoughts on that.
yeah. So this year I had Beltron, Wagner, and I'll go through the rationale all these guys in a minute. But Beltron, Wagner, Jones, Helton, Rolen, Hunter, Kent, Arod, Manny, and Pettit. So on those guys, um, I guess I'll start with I really think Billy Wagner is a Hall of Famer. I'm obviously biased as a Mets fan, even though it's not like his prime was with the Mets, but I mean, I think relievers are people too, and he's one of the best. And um, It's also obviously got the great backstory of like he was a righty, he broke his arm as a kid, he's a lefty, then he threw 100 miles per hour. But yeah, I mean, in my mind, he's a no doubt Hall of Famer. Same with Beltran, and I think he already was a no doubt Hall of Famer for everyone. I know the cheating scandal is probably what's caused that to become a debate and why he didn't, get super close to getting in. But again, biased as a Mets fan, but amazing hitter, amazing fielder. Really thought he could just do everything well. I was expecting him, his whole career to go in as a Met, and now A, who knows if he'll get in, and B, who knows if he'll go in as a Met with them firing him after hiring him. But yeah, I mean, for me, he's a no doubt Hall of Famer, and I think he'll get in. I guess we'll get into that later, what we see coming up. But Andrew Jones also, again, great hitter, great fielder. Did both well for a long time, and kind of, I don't know, it's kind of odd. Like, there are definitely worse players who have had less of a debate to get in, who've kind of just skated on in. So I'm kind of surprised Andrew Jones isn't, someone who got in easily, but I think he'll get there. Todd Helton, again, I see the argument like it's the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Very Good. A, I think he's Hall of Famer, but B, I think there are several worse Hall of Famers than Todd Helton. So if they want to see him get in, Rolen, I do think position matters. So as far as third baseman go, I think he's a definite Hall of Famer. I don't think I would have voted for him, and I don't think he gets in as a shortstop. But great hitter, great fielder, good longevity, won World Series. So he gets in for me, and obviously he's the only one who got in. Torrey Hunter, and obviously I don't have a vote that counts for real, but I always fill out this ballot as if my vote does count. And my logic for voting for him in that scenario would really be I didn't want to see him fall off the ballot. So there are probably some more deserving players who didn't need the vote as much as he did, so that's why he got my vote. But I also do think he kind of deserves more than being fringe on the ballot. I don't know if he really deserves to get in, but like Andrew Jones, he's one of the best fielders at the position, and he was a good hitter. So I thought there'd be more support for him, but seeing where it was going, with the ballot tracker, I definitely thought he needed a vote. And then Jeff Kent on the other end of that. This was his last year on the ballot, so there are other guys I might have voted for over him, but I can vote for them next year. Kent's the only notable guy falling off the ballot, so I was trying to give him a boost. Obviously, one of the better players ever at his position. He didn't get in, and that gets us to the steroid guys. So A-Rod, Manny, and Pettit, and I kind of have some sometimes arbitrary logic with the steroid guys, but A-Rod, it's just the numbers are so good. There are a lot of people who did steroids, and basically no one with A-Rod's numbers. So he's in for me. It was tempting to leave him off because not only did he take steroids, but he cheated twice. He denied it. He lied about it. He did this whole thing, and then he got busted again. So tempted to leave him off, but the numbers were just too good. And then Andy Pettit, the numbers don't blow me away. If Pettit had done what A-Rod did, I don't think I'd be voting for Pettit. But I do think he has Hall of Fame numbers, especially when you look at things like ERA plus that like compare him to the league at the time. Those seasons where he had like a 3.8, 4 ERA are a lot better than they might sound. And obviously the playoff resume, and did it for a long time. And for him, the steroids, it's if we believe him, it's just to recover from the injury. So those are the two sides of the steroid debate for me, or of the kind of guys I'd let in. And then Manny kind of falls in the middle. I did realize that he cheated twice after I'd made up my mind about him, so kind of tempted to take him off, but the numbers were really good, and he was just Manny at the time. He's just such a big part of baseball. Also on the cover of the best baseball video game ever, Baseball 2005, so he gets a boost there. So yeah, that's my ballot.
Boy, Tom.
Hey, listen, that's a solid ballot. I do appreciate you taking it as if you actually had the vote that mattered, because that's the reason why we do this. That's how I vote. I do the same thing. I vote for Torrey Hunter the same way. I get it. I also think Torrey Hunter was such a likable guy. So I don't blame you at all for that. Now, I mean, I personally have no problem with that, aside from Manny, because I can't speak for Billy or Nick, but Manny got caught twice. Obviously, Hall of Fame personality, no doubt about it. But I don't know. Him getting caught twice for me kind of keeps him off my ballot personally. But that's the fun of this, I think.
Yeah, and another thing with Manny is a couple of factors. Manny, again, I realized about the second violation after I'd kind of made up my mind, but Also, in terms of when he cheated, it seems like at least the second violation was kind of after he had put up all the numbers he's put up, and he's trying to just stay in the league. So his numbers are a little less tainted. That obviously doesn't change the character issue, but it's not like I'm looking at his 550 homers or whatever it is and saying, okay, it seems like that's when a lot of the steroid stuff was happening. And obviously there was the first time he cheated, and that probably takes up some of his prime. But yeah, the other kind of thing is, with Sheffield, well, with Manny, there's also, if there had been a 10th guy I was tempted to vote for, Manny might have fallen off. But the only other guy kind of on the borderline was Sheffield, and he definitely had more kind of off the field issues from like a moral standpoint, and he had worse numbers. And I feel like you can kind of just tell the story of the last, or not the last 20 years, but like of, late 90s, early 2000s. You can't really tell that story without Manny. You can probably tell it without Gary Sheffield. So that kind of factored into my thinking. But yeah.
Not bad. I mean, Billy, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Tommy's ballot. I know Nick. I know you have a thought about it. I listen. You and I had a conversation. I know, and I know you're itching to get to it. But Billy,
It's all right. It's all right.
Anything you have?
No,
I'll
I think
wait.
it's a great ballot. I think you had great reasoning for everyone. Don't disagree. I mean, we have very similar ballots. I didn't have Sheffield. Who did I have instead?
No, I think you had it this year.
He had Pettit.
No, I think that was instead of Sheffield. I think you put Pettit.
Yeah, I did not have
Yeah,
Sheffield.
he didn't have Sheffield.
No, I'm talking about Billy.
Oh,
I had Pettit too, though.
Oh, then I'm lost. Let's see.
we need our own Ryan Thibodeau.
Oh, Bobby Abreu.
Bobby
Abreu.
Abreu.
Yeah. Bobby Abreu put up the same offensive numbers as Derek Jeter, but it was a better base runner and a better defender. So.
And he wasn't always a Yankee, so the Yankee
Not
bias
yet, Bill,
doesn't
not
kick
yet.
in for Bobby Abreu.
Yeah, you put Bobby in the Bronx for whatever 18 years, Hall of Famer, guaranteed. That's it. I like your ballot a lot. I think it is.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to bash Derek Jeter. So he is a Hall of Famer, but I don't think
True Mets fan right there.
top 10 all time, like some people would say in this state. So
There.
But yeah, good ballot. Definitely.
Probably on your street, people will say that too. You probably find 10 people on your street, and you're in the city, right? I think, and anyone walking down the city street, Derek Jeter, top 5 player of all time.
Yeah, it's tough.
Gotta love it. Just any idiot can buy a Yankee hat, So Billy, your ballot was pretty much the same as Tommy's, minus Sheffield with Abreu, right?
Yep.
I know mine. I think this is the first year I actually voted for only 9 guys. I usually use all 10.
This is the first time I'm voting 10.
That's a while there. I had Abreu, Beltran, Todd Helton, Corey Hunter, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, Andy Pettit, Scott Rolen, and Billy Wagner. A lot of the guys I've kept the same for the past few years. Obviously, Beltran's the newcomer. And Nick, if I remember correctly, you kind of missed a guy on your ballot that a lot of people had. In fact, 85% of the people, 85% of the 127 ballots we got had Carlos Beltran on their ballot. That's the highest vote total we've had.
You were one of 19 who did not.
Maybe the only Mets
you
fan
have
that would say that too.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning? And go through your full
All right.
ballot too if you'd like to.
All right, since we introduced the Beltran thing,
Okay.
I'll do that first. After we had our conversation about it, I kind of took a quick brief moment to mull it over. Numbers say a whole lot about a player. Their numbers, some may say, are the only reason people get in the Hall of Fame. No matter what happens off the field, who a person is, the numbers they put up are the numbers. I'm not that guy. I think I had to throw that in there. I think Beltran was a household name in New York. He obviously a very skilled player on the field. But I can't look past the 2017 World Series as a misnomer. I can't. I think that plays huge into It's, I guess, as big a deal as Barry Bonds not, being fully in the Hall of Fame. You're going to tell me that, Jose Altuve gets the batting title or, puts up the numbers he does that year without cheating. Now, granted, I will say that he has a great amount of skill. He's a great player as well that has put up great numbers without, allegedly without any sort of help. But I mean, steroids in baseball, PEDs in baseball are, kind of a thing of the past. I feel like that whole issue has just been beyond us with how much it's come up. It's like, how is it not normalized? But going out of your way to hire somebody to steal signs from the app, that's a lot, man. That's a lot. And I wanted to be more animated about that, but I did make sure I took a step back, calmed myself down a little bit, and took it all in. But looking past, if I were to just look past it, purely numbers, Beltran's my first choice on the ballot. But just because of the 2017 World Series, that really does it in for me.
I mean, before we get into the rest of your ballot, I mean, you obviously, and the way you texted it to me was organized crime. We don't condone organized crime. That was what you said to me in the text.
We do not condone organized crime in baseball.
Are you one of those guys that like thinks Shoeless Joe shouldn't get in even though he was innocent, but he's part of the team, this and that? Because obviously there are guys on the Astros in 2017, granted not Hall of Fame candidates. To look at Tony Kemp, who didn't want to partake at the in the scandal. If somehow, some way, let's say a guy like Tony Kemp came up in Hall of Fame conversation, would you be able to look past it?
I mean, he's a guy that came out right in the thick of it and said, I didn't support this at all. I didn't want to do this. So how do you not, on a moral compass, be like, okay, that guy knew what was going on and didn't want to be a part of it? Gotcha. Carlos Beltran did not do that. If he were to be, if he were to not somehow get into the Hall of Fame soon, within the next 5 to 6 years, and then come out and say, oh yeah, by the way, I didn't condone this, I'd be like, well, kind of a fraud now. Not the time, there's a time and place for things like that, and now is not it.
Okay, all right. So obviously you didn't have Beltran on your ballot. Who did you have?
All right, so I went with Helton, Jones, Kent, Pettit, Manny and A-Rod, K-Rod, Jimmy Rollins, Wagner, and Jared Weaver. I want to preface this, I really do, because I know I'm going to get yelled at, and I know the first question out of everybody's mouth is, Jared Weaver? Yeah, I know. All right, give me a second. Guy went 150 and 98 in his career. It's kind of a big deal if you want to just look at stats for what they are. I kind of think he was one of those guys that he had more left. If he had more left in the tank, we would have seen some monster numbers out of him, because he was on a pretty steep incline there for a while. Towards the end of the career, obviously little things going on, but I think that if I were to repick, I sent this text to you also earlier today, that I completely overlooked Rolen. No brainer at that position, no brainer. But enough about the speculative, because I will say the rest of my ballot, I think, was pretty well spoken for by Tom, aside from Jimmy Rollins and I believe K-Rod. So I'll go into that. K-Rod, I think you and I had a conversation a little bit earlier, and it was somewhere along the lines of, if the Hall of Fame was kind of like a popularity contest, and if you were to say that somebody gets into the Hall just because of who they are as a person, you could say that there's a lot of guys that are currently left out that would be in no problem. And also to that point there's a lot of people, or that a lot of the Hall of Fame voters or would-be voters would say that the Hall of Fame should be about how influential to the game was a person at that time that they played. So I personally think that both K-Rod and Jimmy Rollins hit that mark very evenly. When I was growing up, obviously a huge Mets fan. Jimmy Rollins comes into town and I just sink in my seat. I'm like, this is going to be a shit show. Jimmy Rollins was a thug on the diamond here in New York. So, and then to witness K-Rod pitch firsthand, I knew right then and there, I'm like, this guy is something special. He belongs with the best of them.
I mean, feel free to say this guy fucks. Go ahead. I know it's going through your head. I know
it's going there. I didn't say it.
I know. I mean, Tommy, I know I saw your face when Nick said something about Beltron.
Yeah. So there are a few, and obviously, Nick and I did have similar ballots. A few questions I have are,
yes, please.
One thing that, and there were a lot of really baffling ballots that were publicly released on actual ballots.
Actually,
and one thing that I always wonder about is like, and this also happened back when like Bonds and those guys were on the ballot, is people like someone would vote for like Sosa and not Bonds, or Bonds not Clemens or something, and obviously like the numbers are the numbers. So, and I said at the start of this, I also have some rules I kind of just made up for myself with PEDs, and like, which is why I'd vote for A-Rod and Manny and not Sheffield, but yes, Pettit, etc. But with your reason for Beltran being the character thing, but still having someone like A-Rod there, or Manny, with Beltran, and what you mentioned Altuve, and that's going to be interesting when these guys like Altuve, Correa, Springer, Bregman, whoever come up when it's their time. With Beltran, his career wasn't helped by the cheating, because his Hall of Fame years were, he hit like 120 in 2017. So it's not like Altuve, where his MVP was the year they were cheating. Whereas guys like A-Rod and such, their cheating helped them hit 60 homers in a year or whatever. He never got 60, got like 57 or something. But so I guess I'm curious, because you kind of started with like, it's not all about stats for me, but then you having someone like A-Rod and not Beltran. So that's my first question. And then, with guys like Jared Weaver, I mean, again, I think a lot of, like, I like to see people get a vote or two. Like, there aren't many people I don't think deserve any Hall of Fame votes.
Bronson Arroyo.
Right. So definitely, I don't like seeing like when writers just vote for one guy to make a statement about that guy. But I never mind when writers, they have 6 guys they thought should get in. Why not use the other 4 votes to, show some love to some guys? And that's why I think and hope someone like David Wright, and eventually gets up to like 20-30% rather than falling off in the first year. But yeah. So my main question on your ballot is Beltran off, which I get on its own, and the PEDs on, which I get on their own, but don't really see those together. Yeah.
The mesh together. And Tom, I like that you brought it up, because for me, that's what when I tried to explain the PEDs as something that we have seen for years and years and years now. It's just a recurring theme that seems to just kept being swept. I mean, now with A-Rod, like you said, he got caught, lied about it, got caught. I think that those numbers are still unspeakable. It's like, if I know Barry Bonds threw that much, put up that many, sorry, English is hard, that many home runs, with using PEDs, but like, he still put up that many home runs. Moral of the story. Now,
right. That's why A-Rod thought for me too.
Right. So in the number, that's where the numbers speak for themselves, and we look past the PEDs. Now, with Beltran, I think the moral of the story with the character and I guess it helps his stat line if you don't know, like, baseball fans outside of people that really follow the game. You see somebody won a World Series, you think something special, more, think more highly of them, I think, so to speak. You're on a team that wins a World Series and they cheated. It's like, that sucks, dude. And for guys especially, and I'll take it a little bit to heart, and I'll vote with my heart a little bit. Beltran, seeing Beltran be successful elsewhere, really is a dagger in the heart with a twist. So we'll I'll leave it there. If you have any further questions, please feel free.
Well, counterpoint, you mentioned Beltran winning a World Series in 17, and I might be wrong here, but didn't he win with the Cardinals?
I was trying to figure that
No,
out.
Prior to
No,
being a
he-
Met,
He missed that.
I don't think
No.
Cardinals were 11. He was still on the Mets in
he's with the
2011,
Giants.
and then traded to the Giants.
Okay.
We got
All right,
Zach
so now
Wheeler in that
I
trade,
see.
baby.
Yeah. All right. I don't know why I thought Carlos Beltran
No.
won a World Series with the Cardinals.
Following, he was 12 or 13 that he was with the Cardinals.
I know it was
Maybe both.
12 because he was the foul ball that Cardinals fans still talk about to this day.
Yes.
Every June 1st.
Yes, I think he
that
was with them in
was
13 too.
11 years
Though.
ago.
Yeah, he was
I
with
think
them in
so, too.
13. Wow, he had 2
'Cause then he went to the
phenomenal years
Yankees,
with
right?
them. Yeah, Yankees in
Yeah, and
14,
then-
15, 16 got traded to Texas, and then he was with Houston at age 40.
Here's another point about Beltran. And I guess speaking to his character or what have you, there's several reasons why, somebody moves around so much. But guy with his production, and we're talking about Hall of Fame numbers, why are you on like 10 teams, bro? Like, nobody wanted to keep you? Like, what's up?
I mean, he was with the Royals for the start. Royals and the Mets, I think it was the same, about 7, 8 years.
Yep.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah.
Got traded at the tail end of the contracts. The Wilpons. That's different. Casey and the Mets, they're gonna let them go. They're not gonna pay them again.
It's straight up that handshake thing,
St. Louis, he was 2-year contract, and then he's going to his age 37, 2014. So they probably didn't really see him as a fit, and there's no DH back then in the NL. Goes to the AL for the final 4 years of his career. The Yankees for 3 of them, and then Houston for the last one.
Yeah,
So it's
and
not
also,
really moving
there's a
around too much. It's
character-
only really 4 teams that signed him. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I don't know if him moving around is much of a knock on him. Because with the Royals and Mets makes sense. Went to a rental, traded for prospects. And also, if you think about it, the Mets knew him well, and obviously the cheating thing ruined it. But they tried to bring him back as a manager. The Yankees knew him well, and they brought him back as like some coach and then announcer. So it does seem like people who know him well like him.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't hold that again.
I would say, actually, if anything, especially towards the end, him getting traded to the Giants, he was still a productive player in 2011. But I guess really just Texas and then Houston and the Yankees, it was more of a DH and mentor type player because everyone knew that he was going to end up being a manager at the end of his career. Although he hit 29 home runs in 2016. Wow. And he hit 290. He had a really good year in 2016.
Wow.
He wasn't bad. He wasn't bad. That's what I'm trying to get.
Just kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's kind of an asshole though. If you want to, boil it down, if you want to look, K-Rod duking up his wife's dad. Like, come on, why are you beating the shit out of your wife's dad? You can't do that. But
have you had in-laws before, Billy?
Was labeled an asshole.
There's plenty. Jeff Kent, he had the issues with teammates with the Mets, which is why he got traded away multiple times early in his career. So I feel like there's reasons for everybody as to why you could say they're an asshole. It's just I feel like with this ballot with Beltran, I feel like it's kind of a little bit more of a recency bias to it because it was so close. 2020 doesn't count. That was a skipped year, right? So we're really talking about 4 or 5 years. And besides that, who's really the next thing? I mean, A-Rod taking the steroids in 2013.
Yeah, Ryan Braun, I guess.
Brian Braun.
It's also, I think that it's unique, and I think that it probably
that too
unique, and I think a lot of people too, which is that, like you said, like steroids, like we know about steroids by now. Yeah, there's definitely already steroid guys in the hall. There's going to be more guys who get in, and it is what it is. whereas this was so different. But I also think sign stealing was also a part of the game. Like we saw, like the memo went out, right? Like the teams knew, the league knew. That's why how
Yeah.
the Red Sox and Yankees. It's just the Astros had the were best at it. They're the ones who got busted most thoroughly. They ignored kind of the slap on the hand to start. So I do think Beltran's not alone. If anything, his crime is that he was really good at
Mhm.
designing the system. But yeah, I also get that, and that's also why I think in a few years, I think Beltran could get on any year. I think he
Yeah.
could get on this year, next year, but I'd be more surprised if he doesn't get on. He could
Mhm.
also have what happened to Bonds and Clemens, where they end up getting that solid number, but then they kind of plateau around.
Yeah.
50. Uh,
Right.
I mean, Beltran finished this year at 46.5, the same total as Jeff Kent is last year. Obviously, talking about two assholes, same number. Kenton is last year, Beltran is first year.
Oh, I think that's
For the sake of the
okay.
the
All right. All right.
Obviously, I personally think Beltran's number is going to grow. He's going to hit at least 65, I think.
For
with
all you
ease.
know, there might be 200 guys who were just like, all right, we'll take him off for the first year as like a,
yeah,
show me punishment, and then next year he might get he might get 90%. We don't really know because these guys we're dealing with almost 400 assholes, right? So anything
Needless to
could
say, the
really
writers are
happen.
not coming on the show anytime
But
soon.
I do have a theoretical is, do you think that when Jose Altuve, right, when his first year on the ballot, do you think he'll get treated the same as Beltran? You do, even though it will have been 15 years, 15 to 20 years from the incident.
I got a
15 years.
take on this one. I think that
I had a
it's
feeling.
one of those precedential things. Now, nothing very, very, big, nothing crazy. But it's one of those like precedential moments for us with how harshly we treat Beltran, we being, the voters, and the writers, how harshly that we punish him for what he did or didn't do, is how we're going to look at the Astros that were on that team in the future. And again, there's arguments for, arguments against. There's people on both sides of the aisle there. But to say that there will be absolutely no ramifications for future players that were on his team during that time period committing the same crime would be silly. Now, I also agree with you that I think Beltran could very well get on within the next 5 years. And I think of the same reason, recency bias, like we're a nation and we're a society that, just hops on the next best thing. This could be forgotten news if one or two more huge scandals happen.
It's very true.
Like it could be a thing of the past, and like only guys like us that'll be like, no, he did that, he cheated, this, that, the third, and like we'll be the only idiots like in the room, like we'll be the old grandpas. Oh, back in my day, we wouldn't let that slide. But yeah, I do think Beltran will be on the ballot. He may be on my ballot next year. Maybe I'll forget about it after the next big thing happens this year.
Yeah, I was like that with Bonds and Clemens, especially Clemens. I left him off my ballot up until last year, but Bonds, I was strictly against the steroids, and then I kind of looked at it and I was like, it's really not as like, I feel like my perception of it was warped because of like when the Mitchell report came out, right? I remember my dad picking me up from school and telling me like that, Mitchell report come out. I'm like, what the fuck? So we're listening to it on WFAN, right? And
Right.
so my mind to that was just like, this is like the craziest thing. These are a bunch of assholes who are cheating the game. So like that's my perception of it as a kid, and it went into that as as an adult, and looking at my voting record over the past 5 years with Take a Pitch. I didn't have Bonds until 2 years ago, I think, and so I kind of leaned off of that, and I think that some things aren't as big of a deal as others, and like Beltran, if it was it's just a weird situation because we don't really have a full grasp on actually what fully happened, right? But we do know that it did happen and that some guys benefited off of it and some guys didn't. Yuli Gurriel, Josh Reddick, right? Those are the main two who really benefited. Neither of them are ever going to be Hall of Famers or anywhere close. And you know, and there, how many fucking steroid guys have we had? How many guys that accused of steroids have we had? You know,
Well,
Piazza,
okay, sorry.
Piazza, Pudge, and David Ortiz are three that I could can't that coming off the top of my head who were accused, never convicted, and are Hall of Famers. What were you gonna say, Max?
Well, no, to your point about the next big scandal, I think we're still seeing the ramifications from the Omar Vizquel stuff on the ballot.
Forgot about
Which
that.
now I don't know, Nick
Good
and
call.
Tommy. I don't know if you guys know what happened there, but Vizquel was accused of sexual misconduct as a manager in the minor league. I think for one of the White Sox affiliates, and to the point where he was getting his debut ballot was like high 40s, then climbed up the second year to I think 50. I think he hit 55 or 56, where he was fast tracked to election.
That was 2020 that came out, right?
2 years ago.
Yeah,
3 years
because it
ago
kind of got
came out
swept under
where-
the rug because of the whole pandemic thing. So like a lot of people don't know about it. It's kind of crazy.
Right. Which, but at the same time, we're seeing the results where Vizquel hasn't gotten the support. Now he's got about 20% of the votes this year.
Mhm.
But to your point about the next controversy, we've now had Beltran come up. Will we see, I guess, a uptick in Vizquel's votes next year?
I don't
Or
think,
are we?
I think Vizquel's toast. I mean, I did notice I was looking at
Well-
the final ballot tracker tally, like before the results, and then the final results. The only two players who didn't go down are K-Rod, who like went up by like 0.5%, and Vizquel, who went up by like 11%. Everyone
Wow.
else went down by, most guys went down by 4 or 5. The steroid guys went down by like 3 or so. And so what you're seeing there is, you know, people who are voting for people who are not stand-up humans are more likely to want to keep that vote to themselves. Or the other way around, maybe people who are who know that it's the plan for them to submit their ballot publicly will then be less inclined to vote for people they don't want to have to defend. But I don't, especially because the older voters are the ones keeping it, keeping their ballots anonymous, and the older voters and the anonymous ballots are Vizquel's base. The older voters are only going to age out, right? So I think younger and younger people are going to vote for Vizquel less, and I don't think he has that much time left on the ballot. So I'd be surprised. I mean, he's at what, 20%? I don't see 20%, and again, only 10% of voters willing to admit they vote for him. So,
And next year's going to be his 7th year.
yeah, so he needs a pretty big jump that I don't see happening.
And what percent did he have this year?
He got 20%, I think. He got 19.5%.
Oh, so he went down a little. Okay.
But he was only on 8% of public ballots.
Wow, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and like I said, he's the only guy.
Yeah.
Numbers really went up. It also gives me hope. I mean, anyone, like, because again, voters age out and voters get younger and younger and more analytical. That's why I assume, like Beltran was at like 55 before, like on the pre-vote thing. Ended up like 48. I think those guys will get steady boosts over the year. So that's why I expect, I think Helton will get in next year. I think Beltran will get in, and again, he might not, and who knows whether it take 3 years or 9 years or some committee. I do think, to revisit when we were comparing him to Altuve, like I said, defending Beltran versus the steroid guys, the cheating didn't help Beltran at all. Cheating did help Altuve. He won MVP that year.
Mhm.
And again, who knows if Altuve is even going to be a Hall of Famer on his own merit when he retires? It seems like stats wise, he's headed there.
Yeah.
I guess as a second baseman, he probably basically is there. But at going in 2017, he had 3 really good years of hitting like 350, right? But that 3 years aren't going to make you a Hall of Famer. So the guys like Altuve, and I mentioned Bregman, Springer, whoever ends up having the career to get there, the cheating helped them more. So Beltran's the architect, but not the beneficiary. So when you're looking at it, when you're looking at their Hall of Fame candidacies, it becomes kind of like the steroids. Like, all right, well, how legit are their numbers?
Yeah, good point.
That's true.
And you also, they didn't get caught until after the 2019 season.
Right.
They could claim, and fanboys like Max can claim that they were not doing it in 2018 and 2019. They were doing it in 2018 and 2019. For a fact.
Or doing something else, right?
Or doing something similar. Yeah, like they were doing something. They didn't get caught for 2 years. You think that they were just like, oh, we won our World Series. All right, we're done with this technology. No, they were still doing it to some capacity. Fuck you, Max.
I think the big is everyone's always trying to get an edge, right? Like,
yes.
if the Mets were upset, they checked Musgrove's ears, and a lot of people think that because every team has. So if we're gonna,
they were too shiny.
They were shiny.
But if we're gonna kick everyone out because at some point in their great 20-year career they tried to get an edge, like obviously it comes down to did you break the written rules or the unwritten rules? But
that's a good point, and like that's actually a really good point. Is the sticky stuff, right? The sticky stuff is a huge thing over the past couple of years. Like, how is that going to affect Garrett Cole, who is apparently the biggest proponent of this whole thing? Well, I guess we'll see in 10, 15 years or whatever it may be.
And real quick, I know Tom, you just said something about the written rules versus the unwritten rules. I mean, next year's ballot alone, you got Chase Utley coming on the ballot now. He was a guy who was a hard-nosed player, self-described. Obviously, that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way within the game. So you don't know how his ballot's going to look. But, let's say he doesn't get in his first 4 or 5 years. We talked about older guys aging out, newer guys coming in, guys who saw, the Tata slide or some of his other more aggressive plays. Will that unwritten rules become a factor in Hall of Fame voting? And in which case, do we turn the conversation from these unwritten rules are part of the game to, well, let's then write them down, which then changes baseball completely. So to your point, Tommy, about rules, the written ones versus the unwritten ones, the policing the game is done by the players, right? And that's how it's always been, which is why we love baseball. Why should we punish those who police the game themselves for policing the game? Now, obviously, Mike Fiers isn't going to get a Hall of Fame vote for blowing the whistle on,
I'll vote for him.
the Astros, right? He's not going to get Hall of Fame votes when his time may or may not end up coming. There's some weird names on the ballot that get votes, but like Jason Worth. But
you see,
like
him in that men's league? Come on, you've seen that video in the
men's league. Yeah.
Bombs.
But my point being, it'll be very interesting to see going forward the written versus the unwritten.
Yeah,
I think. So. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say with Utley, I don't think. I think the issue of whether he gets in or not is just does he have the numbers? Like he was incredible for 6 years at a position where most people aren't very good hitters, and then he was, for the other 10 years of his career, he was serviceable to good, which, I think he he was the best second baseman in baseball probably, or I guess there were some good. Pedroia and Cano really good too, but he was elite at second base for 6 years, which is a nice stretch, and then wasn't horrible after that. He was pretty good. So again, as a shortstop, I don't think he gets in, but in this day and age, I think he could get in, and I think I'd assume he's respecting the game. That one slide, like, yeah, you're supposed to try to break a double play. It sucks that happened to break Tejada's leg, and it should have been called interference, but it doesn't. I don't think it really reflects badly on Utley. I mean, you should be trying to break up the double play.
Right.
You're going to get away with it, and it's the playoffs. So
then you factor in the recency bias with it too. So his case, I think, is interesting in that sense.
I want to hear someone who's a fan of the Detroit Tigers what their opinion is, because
exactly
we're all Mets fans here. No matter what, we have a fog over Chase Utley of just it's a bullseye. You want to be throwing darts right at it, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm not, I am completely biased. I hate the guy through and through. Hate his guts. So yeah.
That's how I feel about Jimmy Rollins.
Me too.
I really what a punchable face.
A stupid fucking gap. Knock him out and fix it.
Tommy, I know you
really,
had
really
something
hate
else
it.
to say too. I know you were about to make a second point.
Oh, no, but
No, I thought
on
I
that
guess
league or
just in general, yeah.
oh yeah, I mean, uh, also yeah, I hate Utley and Rollins too. I mean, two of my least favorite players of all time. I don't think that maybe I would have taken a longer look at Jimmy Rollins, and I think I might in future years. I don't see him as first ballot Hall of Famer, and I don't think that's from being biased. I think that's just because he's not. But yeah, I think I'm willing to look past. Like I hated A-Rod too, and I voted for him. But to your point, it would be interesting to hear from like a Tigers fan or someone who doesn't really have reason to care about Chase Utley.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I did want to make a point, and this might be what Max is talking about. Is this the Derek Jeter thing, or
Well, I mean, yeah.
Oh.
Feel free. Feel free. Listen, feel free. Bring up anything you want about Derek.
Bring
Derek
on
Jeter.
the slander.
yeah? So we were talking about defense a bit before the show, and we got talking about like, oh, who are some of the great outfielders ever, and feel free to cut me off and clip this if we're gonna do actually a thing on it later. But yeah, we're talking about defense before the show, and who are the best defenders ever at each position, and we kind of threw out Jim Edmonds, and Billy, you came in saying he's like 30th or 40th or something, nothing special. I mean, obviously being a top 40 defender all time in a game that's been around for 200 years or whatever is pretty impressive. But with defenders like Jim Edmonds, like Max and I both said, you feel like he's better than he was because of the great catches. And I just want to say that's my window to bring up that people who aren't great defenders all the time seem like great defenders because of the plays that they don't make easily, but they are skilled and smart and crafty enough to make an unreal looking play on. So like the Derek Jeter jump throw, that's Francisco Lindor just slides over and throws it right. Jeter can't get there, but he can make that amazing throw, and so he ends up looking like a hero. Same with I mean, I think Edmonds' catch, the one going backwards, might be the best catch ever. Maybe Billy Hamilton just gets that ball and goes under and catches it, right? So I did want to slide in my anti-Jeter agenda that the best looking fielders are often bad fielders, which I know in Jeter's case is very historically bad fielder. But
it's very true.
And I think we can tie that in too, is that because obviously we see all these flashy plays, and now in the age of social media, it's in our face 24/7, right?
Right.
With the new voters coming in, are they gonna take the flashy plays into consideration, which water down some of the more impressive routine looking plays? A guy moving 20 feet to his left, not having to make the jump throw, or having a strong arm, but like Arenado maybe. Because will that unfortunately water down his candidacy because it looked so routine? Obviously, Arenado's a bad example because he's a fucking beast. But
or like you mean like the Manny play when he was on the Orioles at Yankee Stadium?
I guess wait, what?
When he was on the
Machado,
Orioles?
Yeah. Machado, yeah.
Oh, you thought I meant
you said Manny, and I'm thinking, yeah.
No, Manny Machado, like that play that you're saying, because like he makes that play all the time. Sure, he doesn't go 20 steps into foul territory like he did that time and throw a 120-mile-an-hour bullet, but is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
like
stuff
that gets watered down because it's like we see that so often. Like that was a top 10 play of 2013, right?
Right.
And he did the same exact thing this year. It wasn't even a top 100 play. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously Rolen getting in now, we're valuing defense a little bit. So looking ahead, the defensive metrics that we now have, I think, are going to play a huge role in showing, I think, who is going to be like how new age the voters get. Derek Jeter wouldn't get in on defensive metrics. It's that simple.
I mean, he'd get in.
It's consistency and clutch and off season and just
it's everything else. But
his Hall of Fame dating roster, it's all of that.
And I think,
alone right there.
I think like you're talking about like social media highlights, all that. I don't think that'll really give a boost to anyone defensively, because I think like the extremely online generation of voters is also the generation that looks at Fangraphs and all that, so they'll see who's a good defender, who's not. I do think it'll actually, with like voters who are like 50 and 60, and so they see highlights, they see things on ESPN now because everyone has SportsCenter and all that, but they don't look at the analytics. So I think there's like not the oldest band of voters, but like the pretty old band of voters. I think some guys will get a boost from that. And again, obviously, like the examples you brought, like Arenado and Machado, are actually great fielders. So, but yeah, it's if someone makes one great play, I don't think that'll help them too much with the younger voters. It's people like our parents who are like, oh yeah, that guy's a great fielder because he robs 2 home runs a year, but he's out of position the rest of the league, right? I mean, the rest of the year, but
Yeah, I think the wave of our generation of seeing highlights day in and day out all over Twitter and Instagram is going to lead us to a very, very tough voting process come 10, 15 years from now when we've seen everything. You know, we almost grew up with highlights. I mean, I know not you guys, but I'm 3, 4 years old in front of the TV, you know,
Right.
watching ESPN. Like, I know what a good play looks like the back of my hand, but to see them over and over and over again, see the same faces making great plays, and then Tom, to your point, like the people that know what they're talking about are going to look at the things that are important, and they're going to look at the graphs, they're going to look at the data, and they're going to make an analytical decision. Is it cool to throw like a random guy and make a highlight tape for him and be like, yo, see, this guy's really good? Yeah, of course, because that's what regular people want to see. But baseball fans that want to, you know, really vouch for a guy that has been amazing his whole career are going to be like, yeah, okay, this guy's done it. Like, you know, didn't have to make that play because, like you guys said, he's in the right position.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and obviously now with analytics being involved in the game itself too, obviously people are in the right position more often now with the shift or this and that. Now it's a bang. The shift is going to change that. I mean,
There's been a
the
lot of rule
future. I know.
changes over the last 10 years too, that
Yeah,
like slightly have changed the game. You know, it's nothing drastic, but like next
yeah,
year is going to be a big difference, right? We're going to see a lot more stolen bases. We're going to see a lot more hits from lefties, you know. So
yeah, I actually think I do hope at some point we have some time to talk about like kind of upcoming ballots and how that'll affect people. But someone like Mauer or even Yachty, I think robot umps are happening probably in the next year or 2 or 3. And so for the catchers who are coming up on the ballots, if they don't get in, most people get a bump as it goes on. But if these guys don't get in soon, like Mauer is a great hitting catcher for a short stretch, but kind of unheard of at the catcher position and one of the best players in the league. But once you have robot umps, like, yeah, Francisco Alvarez, even if he doesn't learn how to catch, he'll be able to play catcher and he's hopefully going to be hitting 30, 40 homers a year, right? So you're going to have a lot of catchers, a lot more catchers now
yeah,
than you do now have actually good offensive numbers, not just
Mhm.
good for a catcher. So that'll kind of in hindsight make people be like, oh, yeah, Joe Mauer, there are like 8 teams right now with catchers who hit as well as him. And every team has a catcher who hits better than Yachty. So are they Hall of Famers? So I think they actually might need to get in quickly if they're going to get it in at all. I think Yachty will get in
that's
first.
a good point.
But
That
That
ties
is a good
back
point.
into what we said earlier about are they the best players and most influential players of their time period? You know, I think that goes to your point exactly.
and I think we need to look at. I mean, obviously, you said it best. You know, each these writers are going to think this, this, and this. Now, obviously, we look ahead to upcoming ballots. There are so many guys that writers can think so many different things about. And if you guys, I know how Billy and I feel. We've made it known over the past 4 years about the process of election, uh, how the writers are absolute morons, and most of them should have their vote taken away from them, especially if you submit a blank ballot. Um, but looking ahead to some of these other ballots, you mentioned Jimmy Rollins on this ballot. There are now stats like Jaws, which some people go by. I know Billy goes by Jaws. Rollins is the
I
32nd,
don't go by Jaws, but I
but
do.
like you it
Yes.
factors it, yeah.
Whoa,
Rollins
getting a
is the
little offended
32nd.
there, man.
Take it down and
Take a step
he's
back. Take a
tight.
step back.
He's tight.
No, but
Just take it
Rollins is
down
the
to like a
32nd
6, huh?
ranked shortstop, right?
Yeah.
So now we go forward and you look at guys like Ichiro, who obviously he was a top player. He's going to get it no matter what. Maybe a bad example. Let me real quick because I saw something.
I was about to ask, what are you trying to say.
I don't know where I was going with that. Not Ichiro.
Okay.
Like a guy like Dustin Pedroia who has an MVP batting titles. I think he has. Now Pedroia is 2 years away, right? But at a second base position, stuff like that. And guys like Dustin Pedroia, where injuries cut short, or shortened careers like Posey, and goes to the catcher comment. Posey was a good hitting catcher.
Would you like to just say his name? David Wright.
No, I wasn't even considering David right here.
Hashtag
But
saying
again,
his name.
Guys with shorter careers who may have been more impactful in shorter careers. Should there be a set of rules for voters, or even more concrete guidelines as we move forward and adapt to the new game?
Yeah, I mean, I
Because
think
the
it
writers
might,
are all over the place.
it might kind of police itself because, like, for instance, Nick, you voted for Jared Weaver because he had 150 wins. Obviously, the 150 wins isn't a Hall of Fame number, but no one's ever going to win 300, right? Anymore. 200 is going to be a ton. So, in 10, 20 years, 150 is all of a sudden,
Yeah.
an amazing number. So someone with a career, and guys are going to get tossed to the side sooner, replaced by younger guys, age out faster. So someone who has like Yohan Santana's career, if you had that career in 10 years from now, or even now, you might be a better candidate than you would have been when you were pitching, but like Bartolo Colon and David Wells or whoever was pitching forever. And yeah, I mean, guys with short careers. I mean, I think Posey gets I don't think he had a short career for a catcher. That's a very good career for a catcher, and obviously the World Series and all that helps him. But yeah, guys like Pedroia, like I said with Utley, like a short but very high peak, and then Pedroia has, his peak would have been longer too if not for injuries. And obviously is the World Series helping him and the MVP. So I do think there are some guys there aren't a lot of again looking ahead. Next year Beltre is going to get in. And then the guys joining the ballot who will get discussed over the years are Utley, Mauer, Bartolo, and David Wright. I forget if I was saying this on the show or pre-show, but better than Scott Rolen as a baseball player. Doesn't have the counting stats, but also isn't far off. He has good counting stats. And I think if David Wright started his career this year and had the exact same career he just had, but it started this year, then I think in 2040 or whatever, he'd probably be a better Hall of Fame candidate than he is in reality. But I think I hope he stays on the ballot. I think if he stays on the ballot the first year or two, he'll get a boost. I don't think he'll get in, but he'll get a boost. Yeah, after that, Ichiro and Sabathia are both going to get in overwhelmingly. And then the guys who are interesting, I don't know if they'll get in and how long, but Felix, Grandy, and then some guys who were, and Pedroia we talked about, and then guys who were good at their position, like Kinsler and Brian McCann. Yeah, after that, I don't think anyone joining the ballot in 3 years gets in ever. The only people we can talk about will they get in on their 10th year is Nick Markakis and Edwin Encarnacion. But
Nick Markakis was incredibly underrated, man. I mean, but if Delgado doesn't get in,
right, Markakis,
Long Island, baby.
Guy. And after that, you have Posey who'll get in, and then John Lester could be first ballot.
John Lester's an interesting one.
I think he'll get in again because at this point 200 wins. I think he had more than that. Is great. And Ryan Zimmerman, who's kind of like David Wright, but less good, but was good for longer.
Right, it was healthier.
Yeah, it was kind of
David Wright, but less good.
Yes. And then next year you Pujols gets in right away and Yachty gets in quickly. So all that is to say, guys on the ballot right now and the guys joining the ballot coming up, it's a good few years to be a fringe Hall of Fame guy because there aren't going to be a lot of guys pushing you off the ballot. So that's why I'm very confident Billy Wagner will get in next year or the year after. Obviously, some guys don't have as much time.
He only has 2 years left.
Yeah, he's got 2 years.
And Andrew Jones, there's no, even if it takes him 4 years, that year I talked about where the best newcomers are Markakis and Edwin. Andrew Jones, if he's not in by then, we'll get in that year. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of guys who I was bummed to see them not get in, and I think that's also going to be a big year for someone like Beltran too, if he's not in. And it's kind of good to obviously.
Yeah.
Bummer
good point.
There's no new Hall of Famers. We've had happen recently, and almost has happened a couple other times. But also, it's kind of good to have those years where no one exciting is joining to kind of give some guys a boost.
Yeah.
Right, and ballot clear out is also helpful, as we saw this year with Scott Rolen and Wagner increase. So a weak incoming class or ballot group is almost as good as a ballot clear out like we had. Um, so
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I'm excited for the future of the Hall of Fame though, because there's a lot of
I'd say
guys
the
who
same, but I have absolutely zero faith in these dumbass fucking writers.
I
Yeah.
think we should have the players and maybe even alumni of the league have a lot more say. And I feel like giving a little bit of testimonial to that point of who they were like on the field,
Yeah, what
and
the
making those
writers know.
plays. Yeah, just being able to speak to somebody. It's just like a job interview, like
Mhm.
do you get that job if your buddy didn't like talk to his boss and be like, yeah, this guy's the real deal? No.
Yeah.
thanks, Nick.
I mean,
Is
I
this your way of
did not
answering
name
publicly
names.
thanking?
I didn't name names for a reason. I didn't want
Say
to do
thank you right now,
that.
or you're
I am not
fired
saying.
I already
Yeah,
got
I mean-
fired. What's the matter?
from this.
I wasn't gonna go there.
I do think that like the voting. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to. I mean that one. I mean, there were some really bad ballots. A lot of really bad ballots.
Yes.
And guys who like, yeah. I mean, we can get into all that. But one I saw today, which I'm sure you all saw, was the guy who just voted for Sheffield.
Oh god,
And-
yeah, we
and to
talked
go
about
with
that
it-
right
Talked
before we
about
and
brought
to
you
go
guys
with
on.
it, had the tweet where it's like, in my mind, if you have to debate it, they're not a Hall of Famer.
It's
So,
like you would
A,
debate
there's no
anybody.
way-
Like,
there's no way Sheffield's no brainer, and there's no way he's the only no brainer. And
yeah.
He said that the 500 home run mark was the
Yeah,
no
so anyway.
brainer.
but it was probably just for clout.
that
It was,
But
but if we have voters
That's-
voting for clout, that
right, what
ruins the
concerns me
entire.
is that younger
integrity.
voters.
well, that's what my theory is with the entire process right now. And anybody who releases their ballot early, it's almost like they just do it as an advertisement to come read my article as to why I did this. So they get all those clicks and that ad revenue and the boost from their paper.
I wonder
It's fucking
if-
stupid.
Two things. First of all, I'm wondering if in terms of rule changes, a few things you could do. You could lower it from 75 to 70, 65, 60. It actually wouldn't let that many more guys in. And I mean, if you think about how with 75%, like one jackass who submits an empty ballot or votes for only one guy or something, he wipes out 3 guys who voted for the guy. So that's just kind of almost too much power. But also I wonder if like your vote should count, like it doesn't count as a negative vote against you if it was a single vote ballot or something like that. Like there are little tweaks you can do in terms of things that aren't changing the math. I wonder if you do either or of these, or both, which is you can't put your ballot out ahead of time, and all ballots end up being public. I think at least one of those changes would reduce bad votes.
Yeah, I agree.
I also think you should
That'd
be
be an
required to vote for
interesting
one
point.
guy. Because, Tommy, you mentioned earlier that you voted for Tory Hunter on your ballot because, you wanted to stay on the ballot. Nick, you had Jared fucking Weaver, who didn't even get a vote from the writers. But again, a guy who would be a vote to stay on. So even if you don't think anyone's worthy, at least keep their candidacy and conversation going by voting for someone.
Has there been any valid ballots to say that there's not even one person worthy of a vote?
I mean,
2,
I don't
3,
think-
like no.
I mean,
I don't think we've had a ballot reset ever.
Oh, let time ago.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think if you're not going to vote for anyone, you should just not send. I think it's worse to vote for one guy who you don't think should get in and send that in. I think you should just not send in your ballot, and that way you don't hurt everyone you don't vote for. But I mean, this year you can make an argument against every single player on the ballot. So I think you could justify an empty ballot, but then again, I'd say no. Like the guys who are on the line are good enough that just don't send in your ballot and don't hurt them and don't screw over 3 other writers who did want them in. And there have been other years, including the year no one got in, where I think empty ballot or not voting for one person, any single person, is justifiable. But again, at that point, unless it's a really bad class, probably just don't send in your ballot.
All right.
I'm trying to find out how many empty ballots we had this year.
We?
Well, I'm talking about
Oh,
the writers. The writers had. I don't know if that's one of those easily accessible tweets, but I'm sure I'll find it eventually.
Yeah,
I know there were
It'll
four
come
in
up
the
tomorrow.
I know there were four that were publicly put out. But yeah, boys, this has been fun.
yeah, sure.
Been awesome.
I appreciate you guys joining us, and thanks for consistently voting with us. It definitely helps knowing that people like doing. I know Tommy, you said you like treating it as if you had a vote. Nick, I'm sure you're the same way. That's what we wanted out of it. And that's how we treated it. So I appreciate you boys joining us and jumping on and talking Hall of Fame with us.
Yep. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
And once again, our thanks to Tommy and Nick for jumping on the show. You know, you could also be on the show if you buy soap from Soapazon, or if you just don't want to be smelly, you can buy soap from Soapazon too. Use promo code TAP for 15% off your order. You can do individual bars, you can do subscription based. Great product. You know I love it. Pine Tar, you know it's the go-to. Promo code TAP. Stop being so smelly. The writers are not that smelly this year. They didn't shut us out. So promo code TAP, soapazon.com. Promo code TAP for 15% off your order.
Yep. I would do about I would say that about 300. I know about 300 people who can definitely use
yeah.
soap is on soap.
Anyone with a blank ballot, you know?
Oh well, they should get the subscription.
Definitely. 6 bars a month. They probably go through that shit like crazy. Blank
They
ballot, one
they
ballot,
should.
one vote. As Tommy said, you know, the amount of one ballot guys, one player ballots. I mean.
Yeah, crazy.
Anyway,
but
you know, as we said, we had 127 ballots, by the way.
mhm,
So appreciate everyone who submitted a ballot.
yes,
So that was our best year.
yeah, by a long shot. I don't remember what we got the first few years.
I think the first year we got like
I think
48.
Oh, really?
No, I think we came in high.
Hmm.
Last year we had about, I want to say we had 48 or 50, and then the
I think
year
we
in
hit
between, I
50
think we had like
last year.
38. Yeah, I think we had like 38 in the year in between.
And we didn't get any our first year. We just did our own.
Yeah, the
Oh,
very
okay.
first episode, yeah. You know, we didn't lead in with
Yeah,
any sort of
that's
hype.
right. Yeah. So yeah, it's cool.
Best year so far.
Cool to
So
get
thank
that
you.
many.
Now,
Almost a third.
obviously, yeah, fucking awesome. Obviously, with that many ballots, we're gonna have some great results, right?
Yes, you'd hope anyway.
Now, to me personally, I think the fans elected the right guys. They did miss on Scott Rolen.
Yes.
They did miss on Scott Rolen. He only got like 55-ish,
Yeah, he got 55.1 on our ballot.
which is
Want
kind
to
of
bring it
crazy,
up?
actually.
I can bring it up.
Yeah, let's see it. We did mention that Beltran did get the most votes at 85%, followed
Mhm.
by Andrew Jones and Jeff Kent. Oh, and Billy Wagner, all getting 78% of the vote each. Fucking awesome. Just shows that real fans know what's up. And Todd Helton squeaking in at 75.6% of the vote. Man, imagine that Hall of Fame class. Some great speeches. Cooperstown would be a fun time.
Not only is it deserving, it's yeah, it would have been appropriate. I mean, really,
Oh yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean Wagner, Beltran, Mets fans will take over the town.
Yep.
Braves fans with Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, Astros fans with Giants fans, sorry.
Yeah,
And then
Astros
Rockies fans who are getting familiar with Cooperstown. Larry Walker and now Todd Helton. If
Yep.
the fans had their way.
Yep.
Fortunately, it'll be a while until the next one, but you know.
He should be there. I mean, those five, I think personally, I think that those 5 are probably Hall of Famers over Rolen.
Really?
Maybe not. Kent and Helton might not be. I got to look at their numbers, but Beltran, Jones, and Wagner are for sure Hall of Famers over Rolen, in my opinion.
All right. I mean, again, Roland also very well deserving. You know, there are
No,
6 guys.
he's
There are
he's
6
definitely a Hall
guys
of Famer.
who are Hall of Famers on this ballot.
Yeah,
In
I
the
mean,
5 that the fans elected and Scott Rowland.
yeah, I mean, I would go as far as to say that A-Rod deserves it too, but people feel
Again,
differently and
yeah,
feel different types of way.
there are arguments. Obviously, you know, Nick had made a case for K-Rod. Torrey Hunter got a lot of love with 28.3% of the ballot. Breu,
Mhm.
we talked about Bobby Breu. You and I are both big fans of Bobby Breu on the
Yeah.
ballot. 29.9. Manny got 33.1. Pettit, 40.9. Sheffield, 43.3. A-Rod with an even 52, and Roland, 55.1.
Yep. And a steep drop off after Francisco Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah. Vizquel at
Yeah.
9.4. Still don't understand that one, but hey, listen, if you voted for Vizquel, let us know. You know, we'll look into it.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your reasoning.
It's kind of cool that it's like it's kind of in tiers, you know?
Right.
Like, you know, there's Beltran and then there's Jones, Kent, Wagner, Helton, right? And then it's Roland and A-Rod, and then Sheffield and Pettit, and then Manny, Abreu,
Breu, Hunter.
and Hunter, and then Rollins and K-Rod. And then it drops off to 9.4. And I mean, those are in tiers too. But
You know what we could do
you
going
know,
into next year?
we had a lot of drop offs this year. I feel like we haven't had this many drop offs prior.
No,
We had a lot of
that's what I
drop
was
offs.
thinking. What we can do is we can do the tap ballot next year too.
Hmm?
Not just the regular Hall of Fame ballot, tap ballot. We could take off Beltran, Jones, Wagner, and Helton next year.
Oh yeah, we
Really have
could.
some fun with this. We could do that.
Like a theoretical. I mean, we're gonna have to
Yeah.
remember, but yeah. And I mean, we could also do like the committees and stuff as well.
Oh yeah.
That will definitely
Expect
get
a lot
passed
more.
since it's only
Yeah.
16.
Yeah. Expect a lot more tap Hall of Fame content this next couple of years. Because listen, if you guys are gonna keep voting, we'll keep putting it out.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing with all your friends, family, dogs, cats, you know, all your friends named Mike Hawk or Hugh
Yeah.
Jazz or all the
There's
other names you guys decided to send
there
in.
were there were some good names. The one that stood out to me the most for some reason is the Rob Manfred one. And then
Wait, what?
yeah, I you don't remember that?
I don't remember this one.
Yeah, it was Rob Manfred, and then the email was Rob Manfred at MLB.com, I think. I don't know why. It's just like so simple yet hilarious. And shout out to these people who did do these stupid names with these stupid emails and still took it seriously. That was cool.
Appreciate it. So much love for that.
Yeah.
You know, we talk a lot about we fuck around a lot. We like to have fun, and I think our listeners must have caught on to that and hopefully partook in the fun a little bit. Now, it's interesting that Kent got the vote instead of Roland the fan vote because I was looking at the numbers, and Jeff Kent is actually the better offensive player. Now, obviously, Roland has the Gold Gloves and the defensive pedigree, but let's put it this way: they both played 17 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Kent had over 1,000 more at bats. So I'm going to say durability played in here. Scored over 100 more runs,
Mm-hmm.
almost 400 more hits. So Kent had 2461, which is, you know, 2,500 is usually a plateau, a benchmark there.
Right.
You factor in a few tough luck outs, he was at 2,500.
Mm-hmm.
Kent had about 40 more doubles, 4 more triples, over 51, 61 home runs, and over 200 more RBIs,
Mhm.
while having a higher batting average and slugging, but a
How
lower
many
on
years
base
of their
percentage.
career each?
17.
Both had 17. Wow,
Mhm.
look at that.
That's why I figure it's a very even comparison. Both play infield, both at a
OPS plus.
premium position. OPS plus. What do we got here? Jeff Kent, 123 to 122.
Hmm.
So when it comes down
So
to it, they are the same player. So if Roland's in the Hall of Fame, what's the excuse to keep Kent out?
the defense. I mean, Rolen was a tremendous defender.
Phenomenal.
Kent was not.
And you can tell in the WAR, Kent's WAR is, according to Baseball Reference, 55-4, Roland's
It's a Hall of Famer.
70.1.
That's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I like that like 50 cutoff to be considered. Depending on the longevity of your career though.
Right.
You know, if you're that's for like if you're playing 15 years, I want to see that, you know, I want to see that 50 plateau. But
Oh yeah.
you know, anything under that, then, you know, obviously changes. But that's kind of like the basis, the starting point for me is that's the first thing I look at. I look at a guy's career WAR.
Jeff Kent actually had more infield hits than Scott Rolen.
What a weird stat. Thank you.
Well, Baseball Reference has situational when you're comparing players.
Yes.
Scott Rolen did have more left home runs versus lefties. So
Yeah.
damn,
I
this
mean,
gives you all the splits and everything. Home and road. Roland had an inside the park home run. That'll do it.
Hmm.
But yeah, that I think it's a no brainer that Jeff Kent's a Hall of Famer, and I think the writers got it wrong here in that sense.
yeah.
Did him dirty.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that they have been doing him dirty for years, and it's kind of shocking that he didn't get that, you know, that big push in his final year. It's like almost like they were just like, nah, who cares, you know? Like,
Yeah.
are you wearing your Jays hat because Scott Rowland?
Well, it's the first one I grabbed. Yeah,
Uh,
it worked. And Jeff Kent actually had said something
mm-hmm,
about the voting, and he said to Susan Slusser via text,
mm-hmm.
"quote The voting over the years has been too much of a head scratching embarrassment." Strong words.
That are they?
That's
I think they're accurate
I think they're
words.
pretty. Well, they're definitely definitely accurate. But the fact that a guy in his 10th year on the ballot, who's a surefire Hall of Fame from numbers, comes out like says that's a lot.
I mean, look at Kurt Schilling. That's another guy, surefire Hall of Famer, 100%.
And he would have Kurt Schilling would have gotten it if he didn't ask to be removed from the ballot. I'm convinced his
Oh, he
10th
would
year he
have
would have
on his
gotten
10th year, but the problem
it
is
100%.
the
They
problem
should have
is
taken that one.
he would have got in on his third ballot if he didn't say, you know, whatever it
Yeah,
was on ESPN.
whatever. Yeah,
And
whatever.
then
I think he was like some sort of super right wing theory or whatever
yeah,
it was.
whatever. No. On ESPN, he didn't say anything like that crazy on ESPN
I don't know what he said on ESPN.
that got him fired. Or was that the tweet?
Oh, I thought it was the tweets,
Was it the
his
tweet?
political tweets that were heavily right wing that
But it
kind
doesn't
of
matter.
went against.
What if he was heavily left winged? It doesn't matter. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter
Right, Schilling should
which
have been
way
in year 3.
he. I mean, you can make an argument he should have been in year one. He's a Hall of Fame pitcher, 100% through and through.
And it's a shame that the committee didn't put
Same
him
thing
in
with
this year
Jeff
either.
Kent. Yep. And I'm not. I mean, I'm not surprised. Like
No.
at this point, if I was in Schilling's position, right? And I know we're getting, you know, a little off brand from what you were
Yeah.
talking about, but if I was in Schilling's position after them not putting me in on the committee either, even if I got elected, I just wouldn't even show up.
Yeah, that would be a power move.
That is a power move. They
That's a fucking power move.
invite you to get the hat and the jersey and to see your plaque for the first time. And I'd be like, yep, and then I just wouldn't show up. Like, fuck you. But yeah,
Jeff Kent
Kent
should do the same thing.
Kent's a Hall of Famer. I mean,
Yep.
I hope he gets in through a committee, but his committee won't be for what, another 6 years or so, right?
2025. So he
Oh,
would
that's
be
it?
eligible for the class of 2026.
Oh, okay. So 3 years.
So 3 years.
Okay.
He's gonna
Yeah.
need some help, but hopefully he and Schilling get in on their committee next. Let me ask you one final thing.
Yep.
Next year, is it time? Is it Rolen? Is it Helton, Wagner, and Beltray?
What were Helton was at 72 this year?
Helton was at 72-2, and Wagner was at 68. I want to say 1.
So I would say that Helton definitely, Wagner maybe, and Beltray 100%
So it's Beltray and Helton for sure,
for sure.
with Wagner being the guy to watch.
Yeah, I would also keep a big eye out for Carlos Beltran.
And we talked about that at length
Yes,
before. All
but
right,
those
listen,
would
I'm
be my guys
excited.
to watch for next year, along with Joe Mauer too. I want to see. I think
I want to see
Joe
how he does, how
Mauer.
he
I think
tracks.
I think he'll be like anywhere from like 45 to 60 range. That's my
Strong
guess.
showing in the first year, huh?
That's my guess. He's a Hall of
I
Famer.
like it. I like it. Billy, Hall of Fame time's the best.
Hall of Fame, man.
Do you know what that means?
5 years. What?
Spring training's right around the corner.
Yeah, pitchers and catchers in
16 in 18 days, 19 days,
Oh, I thought it was 20.
20. Hey, listen.
Yeah,
I'm
something
sure by
like
the time people hear the episode, it'll be 18, 19,
that. It might be
15.
2.
Hey, listen.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm okay with 2.
Oh, I got a new schedule. I gotta send it to you.
All right. Anyway, it's been fun. Happy 4 years to take a pitch.
Yes, sir.
That being said, peace.
It's Tito made.
Yee yee yee.